Good morning, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Caruso, and today I'm going to read you a story that is science fiction. Science being something in technology that we believe to be true, and fiction something that is false. And we blend those together and we have a great genre. One of my favorite science fiction stories is Star Wars. Wrinkle in Time is another one, even Harry Potter. So I'm sure you can think of a few more. This is a story that was published in 1951, that's 69 years ago, and was supposed to happen in 2155. That's 135 years from now. So that's a wide range of time, a time span. The story was written by Isaac Asimov, a Russian author, and it was published in a magazine. The characters are Margie, little girl, her neighbor Tommy, her mom, Mrs. Jones, and the county inspector. Margie keeps a diary, and we've spoken in the 4th grade a while ago about diaries, and you can keep a diary or a daily journal. Many of you keep a daily journal. And Tommy, her neighbor, who found something very important to the story in his attic. So the name of the story is The Fun They Had, and let's begin. This story runs about 7 minutes, so sit back and relax. You can stop it and start it again at any time. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed May 17th, 2155, she wrote, "Today, Tommy found a real book. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather had once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper." They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awful funny to see words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on the screen, you know. And then, when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had had when they read it the first time. "Gee," said Tommy, "what a waste. When you're through with the book, I guess you throw it away. Our television screen must have had 1,000,000 books on it, and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away." "The same with mine," said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. She said, "Where did you find it?" "In my house." He pointed without looking because he was busy reading. "In the attic." "What's it about?" "School." Margie was scornful. "School? What's there to write about school? I hate school." Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. He was a round little man with a red face and a whole box of tools with dials and wires. He smiled at her and gave her an apple. Then he took the teacher apart. Margie had hoped he wouldn't know how to put it together again, but he knew how, all right, and after an hour or so, there it was again, large and ugly, with a big screen on which all the lessons were shown and the questions were asked. That wasn't so bad. The part she hated most was the slot where she had to put homework and test papers. She always had to write them out in a punch code that they had made her learn when she was 6 years old, and the mechanical teacher calculated the mark in no time. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted her head. He said to her mother, "It's It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick. Those things happen sometimes. I've slowed it up to an average 10-year level. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory." And he patted Margie's head again. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. "So," she said to Tommy, "why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes. "Because it's not our kind of school, silly. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago," he added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully. "Centuries ago." Margie was hurt. "Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago." She read the book over his shoulder for a while and then said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." "Oh, sure they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man." "A man? How could a man be a teacher?" "Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions." Margie said, "A man isn't smart enough to be a teacher." "Sure he is. My father knows as much as my teacher." "He can't. A man can't know as much as a teacher." "He knows almost as much, I betcha." Well, Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, "I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me." Oh, Tommy screamed with laughter. "You don't know much, Margie. The teachers didn't live in the house. They had a special building, and all the kids went there. And all the kids learned the same thing, if they were the same age. My mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently." Well, just the same, they didn't do it that way then, and if you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. "Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't. I like to read the book." She really wanted to read about the funny schools. They weren't even half finished when Margie's mother called, "Margie, school." Margie looked up. "Not yet, Mama." "Now," said Mrs. Jones, "and it's probably time for Tommy, too." Margie said to Tommy, "Can I read the book some after school with you?" "Well, maybe," he said nonchalantly, and he walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked under his arm. Margie went into the schoolroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. It was always the same time every day, except for Saturday and Sunday, because her mother said little girls learned better if they learned at regular hours. The screen was lit up, and it said, "Today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of proper fractions. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot." Margie did so with a sigh. She was thinking about the old schools that they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came, laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the classroom, going home together at the end of the day. They learned the same thing so that they could help one another on the homework and talk about it. And teachers were people. The mechanical teacher was flashing on the screen. "When we add the fractions 1/2 and 1/4, Margie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. The end. Wow. I don't think I'd like that school very much. How about you? But I do think that we are doing a lot of digital learning, which is almost the same. I'd like to hear what you have to say about the future of our school. What do you think it would be like? Can you draw a picture for me on Flipgrid about what the mechanical teacher would be like? I'd be really happy to see those. I hope you like the story, but it's not true. It's only science fiction, right?